Maureen. Mute. Now you're on.
10 more seconds. Okay, today is February 22nd, 2021, and we're here for the regular meeting for the Public Works and Finance Committee. And we have Ann Zabala and Maureen Laughlin on by Zoom, and we have Art Becky present with a series of different city folks as well. So we are going to, we got 4 things on the agenda today, 5 things on the agenda, and let's start where we are right now. And number 1 is approval of the February 8th, 2020 Public Works Committee meeting. Do we have any questions about that? I have none.
Good to me.
It was so short, there couldn't be a question.
There can always be a question there, Art. But anyways, it seems like we unanimously approve those minutes then. Okay, now it is a question. We've got a couple of 2 different presentations by someone in this police department. I don't know if it's going to be the police chief or Eric or Lisa. So and it's going to be the small, the annual small grant request.
I think it's Lisa and Eric today.
Okay. So would you like to talk with us about that?
Of course.
Lisa, or Eric?
Yes, great. I will start with going over the kind of the requirements and logistics, and then Eric will talk to you, if my glasses aren't going to fog up here, regarding the programs. So today, the first item that we're going to look at is the police annual small grant requests. And for several years, we've applied for different grants, mainly through the Idaho Transportation Department, and then also through the Bureau of Justice. And so what we started doing about 3 years ago was bringing a group of those forth to you under one item, not to exceed $50,000. And so today what we're bringing forth is the Bulletproof vest program, and I think that kind of, describes itself. But we're able to get up to 3 vests per year, and we pay approximately 50% of those. And those vests are custom fitted to the officer, so those are great. Then also the traffic enforcement grant program is something the department's been participating in for about 15 years. And it allows officers to sign up for overtime to participate in different emphasis programs, seatbelt, different things. Or they can apply for a mini grant, which might be something focused on an event here in Moscow. Also, one of our safety programs allows us to apply to get grant funding to purchase child passenger safety seats, AKA car seats, and also do training to certify people to install those and do car seat checks. And then lastly, we have, this is a program we started 2 years ago. This is our 2nd year? 3rd year? Can't remember. I think this is our 2nd year. It's through the Office of Drug Program, and it's a little different than the other emphasis in that the officers are actually usually on foot doing some drug interdiction type of activity like shoulder taps and those, but I'll let Eric go a little more into that. And then our final one, which is not a federal or state grant, but we like to highlight it, is we apply for funding to do Shop with a Cop. And it's a great event for the community, and Walmart Foundation sponsors that program, and we're able to take the money that they award us and purchase gift cards for the officers to take kids shopping. And they work with the schools and different social service agencies in Latah County. We usually see Latah County officers and then sometimes the State Patrol come, and it's a great event and helps a lot of people. And so the kids get to buy not just for themselves, but for their whole families. So combined, these awards will not exceed more than $50,000, and their application processes are different times of the year, but we're coming forth to you today to either ratify or approve an upcoming application within the items described in the report today.
All right. So obviously, we're participating in the Office of Drug Policy program. It's a program that allows grant money for overtime hours for officers to do plainclothes party patrols, typically on campus, downtown. We're targeting people that are underage and people with open containers. Most of the time, it's with open containers, it's education over enforcement. A lot of times with the underage children, with the infraction, it not being a criminal charge, we issue those for first-time violators as the infraction. With the Idaho Department of Transportation, or Transportation Department, we participate in the overtime grants where we're able to send officers out. And a lot of these are organized by the state based on holidays, winter driving conditions. We just finished up our winter driving, aggressive driving emphasis to target aggressive drivers to keep people from tailgating, that sort of thing, especially in the inclement weather. This new grant is in addition to all the other grants that we've applied for the last few years, on top of the Office of Drug Policy and on top of that regular ITD grant. There's a OHS grant through ITD. It's called the STEP program. It's Idaho's Selective Traffic Enforcement Program. It allows the department to apply out for 2,080 hours of regular time, plus a benefit of 30%.
We're into the next item on the
Yeah,
agenda.
that one.
without-
We're doing the
that's
STEP
next.
grant
Oh, STEP.
separately because
All
of the
right,
dollar
we got
amount.
STEP.
Yeah, so you're good. Yeah, so
Ahead of myself.
the only other one was the child passenger car
Child
seat.
passenger safety
Yeah.
car seats, where we get $6,000 from the state to purchase car seats and do some training with local residents.
And that program has grown, and then they cut back a little because we used to be part of like a 4 Quad City, and then they didn't allow us to work with Washington any longer, and so the program kind of slowed down. And then last year, because of, COVID, like everything, there wasn't as much activity. I don't think we had the kids' safety fair last year.
We didn't because of
Yeah.
the ordinances in place.
But the really good thing about that program is a grandparent or a care provider or whatever, when they have the events, or they can even call the police department and say, I don't have a car seat, and that fits my grandchild or child I'm transporting on a regular basis. And there's a few officers then that can teach the grandparent or the care provider how to install the seat, put the kid in it, make sure it's fitted properly, and they can make a donation if they want. But it's a great program, and I'm bringing it up today, so if anyone watches this video, they know that that's available to the community. So if there's a parent or a grandparent out there that needs a car seat, please get a hold of Officer Warner.
I'm the car seat technician as it stands, and we have one that's in the academy right now. He'll be back in a couple weeks.
And you have to be certified, which we have people certified to train other people to be able to install those correctly. So I think, that's one of the best programs we have, where we're providing safety to the community. So we're ready to move forward unless there are questions.
So I just have one trivial question because I'm interested. How much does a bulletproof vest cost?
I wouldn't be the one to ask. I believe they're upwards in the neighborhood of $1,000.
Twenty.
I heard two different things. Just a second. I heard two different things. One said $1,000 and one said $500. How much was it?
They actually can be up to $2,500. So it depends on the officer size and who the vendor is actually too, but we get reimbursed for 50%, and we see that there's been a wide range of costs, so.
Thanks.
Sorry, Chief Fry, is that?
Ann, do you have a question? I have a couple of questions, and that is, do you work in conjunction with respect to car seats? Do you work in conjunction with Gritman so that they know ahead of time if someone's walking, before they let someone out of the hospital, they know whether the person has car seats?
We actually supply car seats to Gritman, and we provide some training resources, that sort of thing, for Gritman, for Nimipu, which is down in Nez Perce County, and also to the WISH program over on West A.
I'm also curious about this Walmart grant, and that is how many kids do you service a year, and about how much does each child have to spend?
The greater organization in the area, I think in 2019, those were our good numbers, so a little over 200. 2020 wasn't such a good year for us. We haven't been able to reach out as much. We haven't been able to do the programs as we have in the past.
The gift cards are either $50 to $7,500, or $75, I apologize. Yeah, they're buying a car. No. It ranges on how much the city applies for versus how much Latah County applies for, and then, countywide, we've seen a lot of kids. The one shopping day that we participate in, there's usually 20, 25 kids, and then family members that they shop for, so.
Great. This sounds like a fabulous program, and I'm totally in support of it. Any questions, Ann? Any concerns?
I agree.
Yeah, no questions. I'm fully in support of this as well.
I just wanted to make sure that I heard that right. We've been doing this for the last 15 years.
The mobilization, the traffic mobilization program, where they do different emphasis for seatbelt or, like Eric said, hazardous driving, those types of things. I think it could even possibly be our 16th year. It precedes me, so I know it's over 14 years, so yeah.
The ITD grants, the car seat grants, I think have been going for 17 years. Officer Miller, that was her baby. She brought it from infancy up until what it is today.
Wow, that's great. Consent agenda or not?
I think consent agenda, yes.
Okay.
Do the stuff
Thank you
on
very
the
much for your
start.
presentation. Anybody? We're going to go on the consent agenda
Yes.
with the mayor's ability to sign off on anything.
With a recommendation for approval?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just want to get that on the record.
Okay.
Next topic. Now, next topic is the STEP program.
Yes. So this is, I guess I want to say, a new improved version of an older program that ITD has brought back under a new name. The STEP program is actually the Selective Traffic Enforcement Program. And it was called a different program in the past, and it wasn't one that the city opted to work with because it required you to maintain or can keep officers that you had hired for the program in place. So I know some people remember that. We did have a grant from the COPS program where we worked through that for a 3-year process, but this one is completely different and does not require us to hire people or maintain other employment once we're finished. So I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't any confusion about that up front. This program is actually great the way it's presented now, and what it does is allows the departments to fund a traffic enforcement safety team somewhat, and it will pay up to, the dollar amount we're applying for is $100,900 maximum, but it would depend upon, the different departments or whatever, but it basically pays for one FTE. Officer Warner is our main traffic enforcement officer. However, they're going to be forming a team of officers. I'll let him talk to you about that. But it will pay for up to 2,080 hours, which was really a full year of employment, plus 20 hours of overtime. And, yeah.
200 hours.
200?
200 hours, yes, sorry, of overtime. And so one of the things that I just wanted to bring to light before Officer Warner talks about the actual program is that we will be very careful in making sure that we have no overlap in overtime hours for different programs. And that any of the other programs that are just overtime only won't be included in any regular time or anything for this. So our documentation will need to be stepped up just a little bit to make sure we don't have any overlaps, but the officers are really good about keeping documentation, and we have new timesheet program coming in, and I think it'll make things a lot easier. They also will pay for up to 24% of our benefits. And,
Overtime.
yeah, on the overtime. So benefits per person and historically have been 32 to 36%, so that's a good chunk of the benefit option, so.
So the Office of Highway Safety, they'll cover up to 30% of the regular hour benefits and 24% of the overtime hour, which is what they
Okay.
currently do for the ITD grants.
Okay.
And what should we do for the match?
That'll be my hours. My hours, I'm a dedicated traffic enforcement officer, and any dedicated hours spent on traffic enforcement can be used as match on top of with the benefited rate. So it roughly translates to a little over 640 hours of my time.
So let's just step back for a second. So his administrative time, that's separate from, so we're looking at the 2,080 hours as a team time that we'll document, and then administrative time, and then also mileage during traffic control hours that are counted for the grant. So we have, also there's some hours for in-house administration that can be used for in-kind, which is, I think was 25% we stated. So that's
the match, yeah.
yeah, so not just, we're not overlapping, we'll track things separately. So time that he's out doing enforcement hours, but if he's in the office doing paperwork, that would be counted as his in-kind match time, correct?
As well as the enforcement hours.
Will we be hiring a new employee?
No, and that was my point that I wanted to make first, is that Eric will be the main officer working with the program, Officer Warner. However, they will have a team of officers that will be signed up to do this particular grant program that do traffic enforcement. So it doesn't have to be tied to just one person. It will be a team of people that their payroll hours when they're doing traffic enforcement can be reimbursed by this grant. And so at the average hourly rate that the officers make with the benefit program, we estimate the reimbursement for the upcoming year to be not to exceed $100,900. And so this program does not start until October 1. And so we have time to, get the documentation and the tracking model put together. And it's nice that it starts with the beginning of our new fiscal year too. So, and we'll have all our new systems in place with the new accounting software by then also.
Well, the nice thing about the tracking systems is that, and reporting and statistical gathering, it's already in place with the ITD grants, the paperwork there. We can use that paperwork for the STEP grant.
They have a system called WebCars that you can log into, and they have a lot of forms that are already there and they populate. And so all of our grants actually through ITD have, there's a module in there for each one. So you can log in, and the agreements and the certificates and assurances for all of those, we just have to do those once a year. And they're all included in that system.
Are you done? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
So just to summarize, we're requesting approval to apply for a grant under the STEP program. And the maximum we're asking for you to approve today or move forward to council is $100,900 for the FY22 budget. And that would be for a traffic enforcement officer team.
So I have two questions for you. One is, what do you think our chances of getting that grant are? Are we competitive? And the second one is there, if we get that, do we have an idea of how the police department will use that $100,900?
So I don't think that it's competitive. I think if you apply, you should be awarded, but you may not get the full amount you asked for.
This last October, I went to a training, and they presented this, and their spitball number was 100,000, and they said, apply for it, and you pretty much get it.
Great.
So we calculated what the one FTE is, even though it's not just focused at one person, but that would give us a good estimation of how many hours for the year it would be. So
the question then is that, do we have an idea of what we're going to use the salary saving monies for?
Yes, whenever we have shifts that are, our minimum staffing is 3 for patrol. And each patrol team has about 5 officers currently. With the new hires that we've had in place, and with new officers coming back from the academy, nearly each team will have just about 5 individuals. And when they have 5 individuals working, they'll be able to dedicate one of those officers to work overtime, or not overtime, I'm sorry, to work their regular shift as a traffic enforcement officer. just me personally, since 2018, I made 17.4% of the traffic stops in the city of Moscow out of 20 officers. And if we can obviously get more coverage out there, there's a lot that goes unseen when I'm not working. There's a lot of officers that can take that opportunity in those late night hours to catch different types of violations, because there's a whole different demographic in Moscow between day and night as far as drivers are concerned.
And also to answer the rest of your question, Councilwoman Laughlin, as far as the cost savings, we would defer that question to the chief and the city supervisor and council to decide how that money would be used if we have cost savings throughout the year.
So just to clarify, the upshot is we'll have extra traffic patrol out and about for longer duration across the course of a day, because as you point out, at the end of the daylight, the demographic changes, and for some strange reason, they're always right in front of me. And so,
No.
yeah, so anyway, I think it's a good idea, and I would be very much in favor of apply away.
Mm-hmm. Ann,
Agreed.
Yeah.
consent agreement, consent,
I
agenda or not?
think that'd be my vote.
Yeah.
Yes, it can be on consent agenda.
With approval.
Recommended.
Recommended.
Any additional questions?
Not from me.
Thank you both.
Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Zoom.
Two down, let's go. Good killing it. Okay, so the next one is looking, and we have Amanda on the phone, or by Zoom.
No, she's here present in council chambers.
Great, okay. Go Amanda.
She's just pulling up her presentation.
Just going to share a screen with you in a second. Look at how dexterous she is dancing through the file system.
I think age helps as well.
I'm also short, so it's very difficult.
You might want to minimize the Brady Bunch boxes on the side. There.
I always get quite the calf workout when I'm behind the podium. Good afternoon. Normally I'm in front of admin presenting these things, and more I find myself in front of public works. So today we are going to be doing a presentation on the 2021 revisions and edits for the Moscow Farmers Market Handbook. So just to give a background, the handbook revisions start out with a policy subcommittee of the Farmers Market Commission. Policy subcommittee members this year were Kelly Kingsland, who is the produce vendor representative, and then Ryan Lazo, who is an at-large representative. The goal is to keep the policies aligned with the mission and vision, eliminate and remove redundancies, and of course address potential new policies that may need to be implemented or overhaul of current policies. So the subcommittee met over the course of the fall of 2020, going into the winter, and then the commission as a whole reviewed the recommendations, and if there were things that they wanted the subcommittee to look at, subcommittee would meet again to review those things. So January 5th, the commission as a whole recommended the suggestions that I'm going to be presenting to you, and then these have already been reviewed by legal as well, so we've cleared that hurdle to make sure that we're not doing anything illegal with our policies. So first thing is our refunds line item. This went from a simple line of that the market does not provide refunds to vendors for days that are canceled or missed to the paragraph that is presented here. For a couple of reasons. The market experienced two out-of-the-ordinary events last year. One being a public safety cancellation on September 26th, per recommendation of the Moscow Police Department and City Administration. And then we had a freak snow event where it's not uncommon for us to maybe see snow in October. However, the amount of snow that we saw was certainly not something that we're used to dealing, where we actually had to make a morning of decision with the streets department, depending on the amount of snowfall, on whether or not we'd have to relocate the market. I believe that day we had somewhere between 12 to 17 intrepid vendors that came out, which was 2 weeks prior to the market having its last market day. So we wanted to address how vendors can seek refunds in these sort of extreme cases. So we had to sort of flesh that idea out a little bit more. But essentially, vendors are allowed to request a refund within 2 weeks of the staged closure if they had already sort of not decided or did not cancel with us. So that's one change that we're making this year to the policies recommended for approval. The second item we looked at was generators. So electricity is a hot topic in the farmers market. We have limited capacity plus limited availability to access it for vendors based off of historical vendor attendance with the market. Most of the electricity is concentrated to Friendship Square, and that only goes out so far with an extension cord without overhauling our system in the peak of summer. So the Policy Subcommittee explored a couple of different options about generators. Generators these days are much quieter than when the market first started. Ultimately, they just decided to not remove it, so it stands as it was in 2020, which is the market does not allow the use of generators during operating hours. There are other options that the commission felt for vendors to explore, such as battery packs, which are becoming more and more common, portable battery pack units. Again, especially with the downtown revitalization, that's something that I think long-term would be something we'll look at as the market. So that was a really simple one. And then under vendor operating policies, we have a new item, which will become item 4, which is vendor merchandise. The policy subcommittee attempted to tackle this in 2019 going into the 2020 season, but it was just a little too much to wade through at the time. And so we finally felt like now was the time to tackle it, and we recognize that vendors that start in the market can start with a product, and we're starting to see more of them develop merchandise for their business. And we understand that their success is also our success, and we want to make sure that we're not hampering business operations, but we're still maintaining the integrity of the market and not turning it into a flea market operation. The largest concern that I had as staff was if a vendor slowly starts to move away from offering their product of homegrown produce to all of a sudden becoming a t-shirt vendor. We wanted to kind of nip that in the bud before it happened, but we still allow enough flexibility with this policy in its first year to kind of see where the kinks are, where the pinch points are, and come back and review it for the 2021 to 2022 policy season. And if there's no further questions, I'll stop screen sharing and, I will stop screen sharing and then sit for questions.
Does anyone have questions?
I just have one. If someone were to want to use a battery pack instead of a humming suitcase generator, would anybody even really notice or comment on it? Because it's not an actual generator per se.
No, and that was one thing that the commission felt like we didn't need to create a policy that allows for that. I think What they wanted to avoid was noise, nuisance, smell. But we also haven't had any vendors take us up on the battery pack option either. Does that answer your question?
So nobody would really much notice if, a string of decorative lights powered by a battery showed up and...
No, I don't think so.
Ann, do you have any questions?
No, I feel pretty familiar with all of the content just being the liaison last year, so it's good to see some of the results that came from those discussions. But no, I feel like everything's pretty straightforward heading into the season.
So Amanda, I want to say I was really impressed with this and the changes that you made, but it's also pretty new to me. And I was just curious about the provision that talked about egregious behavior and offense, which is not new, but I'm really curious on who enforces that on the spot, which I think is probably one of your staff, you or someone on your staff. And I'm wondering who you have a backup in case someone is really egregious.
Egregious behavior and offense it falls to staff to enforce that, primarily myself. So 9 times out of 10, I am at market every single Saturday. I do take an occasional Saturday off, maybe to get away from people and backpacking. But in that case, if there was threatening or belligerent behavior, if staff felt like they were at risk, if I felt like I was at risk, that would be a call to PD to bring an officer into the market. And that's why these rules are adopted by council, because it gives us a little bit more weight to them. Thankfully, my only experience in that, I didn't have anyone be belligerent towards me, but we have had, when I was an AmeriCorps member, some vendors who just refuse to follow the rules that are stated in the handbook, which everyone agrees to in their farm spread application. But our backup is to fall to PD for day of enforcement. And then, of course, with the appeals process, we would bring in my direct supervisor, Jen Piffner, as the deputy city supervisor, especially if that grievance was with me as a manager. So.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Nope.
Any concerns? Can we put this on the consent agreement, the consent agenda with approval recommendation?
I think
Yes?
it'd probably be best to have this on regular agenda, just so the council can affirmatively adopt the new handbook.
Okay. Great.
I believe there is a resolution.
We still
to
give a
be considered,
recommendation of approval? Yes. Thank you, Amanda.
yeah. Thank you.
Okay, Bill, you're up next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as the council is aware, last fall, the city purchased the Haddock Building located at 504 South Washington Street as a more cost-effective and suitable means of addressing the staff space needs for the engineering, building safety, and planning and grants group that has emerged and has been fairly tight over the last several years. After our initial plan, as we were preparing for the bond measure, was to remodel the existing police station. That was estimated to cost $1.5 million to renovate that building to meet the engineering, building safety, and planning group's needs. The Haddock Building was available for a little over $800,000 with a much lower remodel cost estimate. We had about $474,000 was our estimate for renovation of the building. So we were considerably less than just a remodel cost on the police station, and then we would have the police station property for disposal and to recoup some additional revenues from that facility as well. We've been working through the design phase on the project, and that project was placed out to bid in early January, published on January 2nd and 16th, with a bid opening on February 11th. We did receive 3 bids, and the scope of work largely includes interior wall demolition, especially upstairs. That building was set up for kind of a multi-tenant facility with separate suites. And so the overall goal is to open the building to make it more efficient. And so we had some reconfiguration, demolition of existing walls. We had to construct a new permit service counter on the first floor, replace all floor coverings in the building, install new LED lighting and ceiling systems, And also, an add alternate on the project was replacement of a non-compliant interior staircase. We also were going to be replacing an outdated electrical panel, some electrical system reconfigurations, and interior painting to finish the project. We also have 2 restrooms upstairs that are going to get reconfigured just to make space use more efficient long-term on the facility. As I mentioned, we had 3 bids that were received on February 11th. And the lowest bid was received from KNG Construction from Lewiston, Idaho, with a base bid of $311,000, and then the price on add alternate 1 at $48,000 for a total bid amount of $359,000. There are some additional improvements that we have planned that include the roof replacement. Because this was going to be a winter, early spring project, we really did not want to do the roof replacement until we got the better weather in the summer. So that one has been held out from this project, as well as a replacement of 2 of the 3 HVAC units on the building that are original equipment that were installed when that building was constructed. One of the 3 was replaced by the prior owner within the last 5 years, but the other 2 units are beyond their really serviceable life. And so we have those 2 other improvements to complete on the project. Adding those in, the total cost would be about $410,000. And as I mentioned, we budgeted $475,700 within both the city's capital improvement plan and the capital projects budget this year. So with that, staff would recommend acceptance of the low bid from KNG Construction and award the contract in the bid amount and total amount of $359,000, and authorize staff approval of construction change orders in an amount not to exceed 10% of the contract amount. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you might have.
Art, do you have questions?
No question, it's just a comment that it's such a relief to see a bid come in under what was projected. Absolutely delightful. So good.
I had a somewhat related question. What's the timeline for putting the old police building on the market? Are we waiting until they move into the new building?
So the current completion date for the police station is in July, and so we would not be likely disposing of the building until that occurs. We have ordered an appraisal, and that's scheduled for completion on March 12th, and that'll give us an idea of the fair market value of that facility, and then we'll be coming to the council with the process for conducting the auction and disposal of the property.
Great.
Okay, so, and I have the question, and that is with respect to, will there be, there's bathrooms in slide 80 and slide 81 of your presentation, and I'm curious on whether those bathrooms will be, at least some of them be designated as gender neutral or whatever term the city comes up with.
So there are 2 single occupant restrooms on the second floor. They're currently signed as being gender specific, but those bathrooms are actually going to be demolished as part of the remodel project, and they'll be replaced again with 2 single occupant facilities. Those on the second floor, we do intend to sign as being gender neutral. On the first floor, there are 2 bathrooms that we are not really altering as part of this project, just because we didn't have the budget to accommodate it. Those actually include 2 fixtures on each side. I do think those are also being proposed to be advanced to the council for signing as being gender neutral restrooms. It's part of the broader city facility plan that the facilities group has been working on, and that should be coming to the council here in the next, I think, in the next month or month and a half. That will include these restrooms as well. But as I understand it, the proposal is to make all restrooms in the facility gender neutral.
Okay. No other questions?
Nope.
So the question is, does it need to go to the whole council, or can we do it on this consent? It goes to the whole council.
Typically,
Okay.
bid awards can go.
With a recommendation of approval.
Because of the money issue, I think it goes
Right.
to full council.
It's whichever the council would prefer.
I think,
And
I mean, I think consent would be fine, but I don't have a strong opinion either way.
I'm thinking that, given the money and the fact that the public should be interested in what's happening with their bond money relative to the Haddock Building and the police building over on 4th Street, I think I would prefer it on regular. It won't take long, but I do think for transparency, that's where I'd like to see it go.
Let's do it.
We'll do it with a recommendation of approval.
Yes,
Could
please.
you do that?
Thank you.
Okay, back up here. And I think Then are there any reports that need to be done? Our Moscow recycling truck sales report by Tim Davis? Yeah, first of all, the only report that we have is one about the recycling truck scales report. Tim Davis. Are you present? Are you on the Zoom?
I'm on Zoom. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. The truck scale down at the Moscow Recycling Center suffered a major structural failure on January 25th. One of the main levers broke due to extreme rust degradation. The lever could not be repaired with any certainty, and it was the opinion of the certified technician that continuing failures would occur, possibly catastrophically, depending on which support feature failed as a result of rust degradation. It was present throughout. The scale is a 10-foot by 70-foot pit-type scale with a large concrete deck weighing upwards of 40,000 pounds, and it was installed in 1994. We were informed earlier this past summer that the scale was nearing the end of its useful service life and would likely need to be replaced in the next year or two. Unfortunately, this failure occurred before we could even have a chance to budget for the replacement as we had anticipated in this upcoming FY22 budget. These lever-type truck scales are also becoming obsolete as all of the new truck scale applications are using load cells rather than the lever-type scale. That being said, this truck scale is a very important piece of equipment for the operations at Moscow Recycling Center and needed to be replaced as quickly as possible. We had 2 procurement options available to replace the scale in a timely manner. Number one, we could have asked City Council to declare this an emergency and bypass the bidding process, or 2, because the estimated cost was between $50,000 and $100,000, we could issue a Tier 2 bid or a soft bid. This Tier 2 bid process requires the solicitation of at least 3 vendors by written means, either electronic or physical. We have to allow 3 days for the vendors to respond. We have to receive any written objections to the bid specifications and or the bidding process 1 day prior to the bid being due, and then we have to pick the lowest responsive bid. We chose the Tier 2 bidding process. Specifications for the replacement truck scale were developed and sent out to 4 vendors on January 29th, with responses due back by February 4th. 1 responsive bid was received and awarded to Scales Northwest of Spokane, Washington, in the amount of $78,938.20. The bid price includes all labor and equipment for removal of the existing scale as well as installing the new scale. The sanitation fund budget contains a contingency line each year for just this kind of unanticipated occurrence. The new scale is a low-profile load cell type scale that one would normally see set up as an above-ground scale. However, it will be installed in the existing pit at Moscow Recycling. This will require that once the existing scale is removed, which is scheduled to begin next Tuesday, concrete piers will be poured in the pit to support the new scale. It will take 3 to 4 weeks for those concrete piers to cure before the new steel deck scale can be installed. Once the new scale is delivered to Moscow Recycling, the actual scale installation can be completed in 1 day. Delivery is tentatively scheduled for March 12th. And I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I have 2 questions. I missed the number for the cost for this, Tim.
It was $78,938.20.
Thank you. And so is this technically budgeted for because of that contingency line item?
Contingency covers a wide range of unexpected occurrences, so I would categorize that as one. Like I said, we were made aware that it was nearing the end of its life, and I had planned to budget for it for a new scale in this upcoming budget. And unfortunately, it went before we could do that.
Yeah, and this is Tyler. Yeah, but specifically to answer your question, no, it was not specifically budgeted for. This scale was not called out in the budget, but I think what you're alluding to is, yeah, that this is the very reason we carry a contingency in these types of budgets. We have to operate large and expensive equipment that inevitably we're going to have certain things that fail every year. And so this is the purpose of having contingency, but this particular item isn't specifically called out anywhere in the budget to be covered.
Gotcha. And I imagine that's just the case with that line item generally.
Yes, that's exactly it. This is exactly the type of thing the contingency is for.
How much is in that line item for the fiscal year?
$200,000 for fiscal year 2021.
Great. Those were all my questions. Thank you.
Yep.
Do you have questions?
Nope, they all got answered for me.
Thank you for working quickly to get that replaced.
You're welcome.
Okay, Ann, I'm froze. I'm hoping to get unfroze soon.
Oh, sure.
Great, I'm unfroze. Okay, Art, do you have questions?
No questions here. Tim answered them all in his presentation.
I think Tim and Tyler together answered some of my questions because I had the similar ones to Ann. So, okay, so Art, this goes to you in the question of, does this go in the consent decree or does it not go in the consent decree because it deals with $78,000?
This is really more of an emergency action that staff has already taken to get the scale replaced, so there really is no council action. This is really just a report to the council.
Good. And we're glad you took care of it.
Yeah. We could consider it reported, I guess.
Yes. Thank you. Any other agenda items that anybody has? Can we adjourn?
Have a nice afternoon.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.